Welcome back to American Remembered. I am Robert Zach. Today, we journey back to the roaring engines and the smell of grease and coal. We are exploring the life of a man who didn't just build cars, he built the middle class. Henry Ford was a visionary, a rebel, and a student of the same principles that Napoleon Hill would later codify into history. Get ready, because the story of the Ford Motor Company is a roller coaster of failure, stubbornness, and ultimate triumph. Before the assembly lines, there was a young man on a farm in Michigan who hated farm work. Henry Ford spent his nights disassembling watches, fascinated by how things worked. In 1896, he completed his first vehicle, the Quadricycle. It was crude, steered by a tiller, and had only 2 speeds. But it was proof of concept. However, Ford's first 2 attempts at starting a car company ended in total bankruptcy. His investors lost faith, claiming he was too focused on perfection and not enough on production. But as Hill would later say, every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. In 1903, at the age of 40, Ford tried one last time. He incorporated the Ford Motor Company with only $28,000 in cash. This time, he had a different vision. While other manufacturers were building luxury toys for the rich, Ford wanted to build a car for the masses. He famously said, "I will build a motor car for the great multitude." It had to be simple, it had to be durable, and most importantly, it had to be affordable. This desire became his obsession, the definiteness of purpose that Napoleon Hill identified as the first step toward any great achievement. Then came the Model T in 1908. It was the car that changed everything. To lower the price, Ford innovated at a level the world had never seen. In 1913, he introduced the moving assembly line to his Highland Park plant. Instead of workers moving to the car moved to the workers. Production time for a single chassis dropped from over 12 hours to just 93 minutes. This was the birth of mass production. Ford wasn't just making cars, he was making history. By 1918, half of all the cars in America were Model Ts, and famously, they all came in any color the customer wants, as long as it is black. Ford's innovations weren't limited to machines. In 1914, he shocked the industrial world by announcing the $5 day. He doubled the average wage of his workers overnight. Critics called him a socialist, while others feared he would bankrupt his company. But Ford knew exactly what he was doing. By paying his workers enough to buy the cars they built, he created a self-sustaining economy. He turned his employees into his best customers. This was a masterclass in the law of increasing returns. He realized that by serving others, he was ensuring his own prosperity. But success often brings internal conflict. Ford struggled with his stockholders, who wanted larger dividends instead of reinvesting in the factory. Ford hated being told what to do. In a daring move, he bought out all his investors, taking total control of the company. He became the sole owner of the largest automotive empire on earth. However, this absolute power led to a dangerous level of stubbornness. He refused to update the Model T for years, even as competitors like General Motors began to offer more comfort and variety. Every leader has a shadow, and Ford's shadow was his refusal to change. It is fascinating to look at Henry Ford through the lens of history. He was a man of iron will, but also a man of deep contemplation. While he was perfecting the assembly line, he was also seeking the company of other great minds. He understood that no man is an island. He knew that to maintain greatness, he needed to align himself with those who possessed the knowledge he lacked. This leads us to one of the most powerful concepts in Napoleon Hill's philosophy, a concept that Henry Ford lived every single day. Napoleon Hill often cited Henry Ford as the ultimate example of the mastermind. Ford was part of an elite group called the Vagabonds. This group included Thomas Edison, the great inventor, Harvey Firestone, the tire tycoon, and John Burroughs, the naturalist. Every summer, they would go on camping trips to discuss philosophy, science, and business. Hill pointed out that Ford was uneducated in the traditional sense, but through the mastermind, he had access to all the knowledge in the world. He didn't need to know everything. He just needed to know the men who did. This synergy was the fuel for his empire's longevity. Ford's philosophy was simple but devastatingly effective. He believed that thinking was the hardest work there is, which is why so few people engage in it. He taught that failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. This mindset allowed him to survive the darkest days of the 1920s when the Ford Motor Company almost lost its lead to Chevrolet. He had the courage to shut down his entire production line for 6 months to create the Model A. It was a massive gamble that paid off. He proved that persistence is the primary difference between a leader and a follower. By the late 1920s, the automotive market was evolving rapidly. Customers wanted style, color, and more power. Ford's son, Edsel, tried to convince his father to modernize, but Henry was immovable. He loved the Model T like a child and refused to admit it was obsolete. This internal struggle almost destroyed the company. Sales plummeted as people turned to more modern options. It was a painful lesson in the law of cosmic habit force. You cannot remain stationary in a universe that is constantly moving. Finally, Ford realized he had to innovate or die. The transition to the Model A in 1927 was a logistical miracle. Ford retooled his entire operation in record time. The car was a sensation, bringing the Ford name back to the top. But the victory was short-lived as the Great Depression hit in 1929. While other companies collapsed, Ford's massive cash reserves and V8 engine innovation kept him afloat. He continued to push the boundaries of engineering, even as the world around him was falling apart. He believed that in times of crisis, the only way out is through production and hard work. He was a titan standing tall in a sea of economic ruin. However, the 1930s also revealed the dark side of Ford's management. He became increasingly paranoid and hostile toward labor unions. The infamous Battle of the Overpass in 1937 saw Ford's security forces brutally attack union organizers. This tarnished his image as a man of the people. He was a complex figure, a man who gave workers the $5 day, yet fought their right to organize with violence. It serves as a reminder that even the greatest minds can be clouded by a desire for absolute control. Success requires balance, a lesson that even a giant like Ford had to learn the hard way. When World War II broke out, Ford transformed his empire once again. He built the massive Willow Run plant to produce B-24 Liberator bombers. At its peak, the factory was producing one bomber every 60 minutes. It was a stunning display of industrial might that helped the Allies win the war. Even in his late 70s, Ford's assembly line principles were saving the world. He proved that the same techniques used to build a cheap car could be used to defend a nation. This was the ultimate realization of applied knowledge. the power that comes when a clear vision meets massive action. Henry Ford passed away in 1947, leaving behind a world that looked nothing like the one he was born into. He had put the world on wheels and paved the way for the modern industrial age. His legacy is not just the cars that bear his name, but the very way we live today. From the assembly lines to the weekend off, Ford's influence is everywhere. He was a living embodiment of the think and grow rich philosophy. He showed us that a single idea, backed by persistence and a mastermind, can literally move mountains, or in his case, move an entire civilization. As we reflect on Ford's life, we see the echoes of the principles Napoleon Hill studied in Carnegie's mansion. Ford was not a perfect man, but he was a focused one. He mastered this self-discipline, required to ignore critics and follow his own inner compass. He understood that wealth is more than just money. It is the power to implement change and serve humanity. His story reminds us that success is a journey of constant learning and adaptation. The assembly line was his tool, but his mind was his greatest asset. For Henry Ford, the road to success was always under construction. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life of Henry Ford. His life proves that with a clear vision and the right team, no obstacle is too great. If you enjoyed this dive into history, please subscribe to American Remembered and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep these stories alive for the next generation. Remember, steel is forged in fire, but success is forged in the mind. I am Robert Zach, and I will see you in the next chapter of our history.